So today I have Lily Wang here. She's a digital marketing intern with Victoria's Secret, actually starting next week. Is that correct?
Yes.
So awesome. You're a marketing major as well at Ohio State. And let's start things off. Why Victoria's Secret for you?
So I had some previous experience where I had been exposed to Victoria's Secret kind of at different points throughout my college career. Freshman year, I took a class through the Fashion and Retail Studies program at Ohio State. And through that class, they offered our class, if we wanted to be involved in one of their wear test programs. And essentially what that is for the pink team at Victoria's Secret, they got a group of students to fill out a series of surveys for them, as well as test some of their upcoming products to give them feedback on the product, what you like and don't like about the product, so that they can make adjustments and recommendations before that product goes out to sale and for customers. So that was a really cool program I got to be a part of. I got to wear test a couple different products. I also got to do a couple in-store walkthroughs of upcoming store sets that they had, one at their Easton store and one at their corporate office. They have a mock store in their corporate office, so I went to go to that and essentially just did a store walkthrough of one of their upcoming floor sets for a couple years in advance of when we were doing the store walkthrough. So for a couple hours, we walked through the store, looked at some of the product, gave them feedback on what product we like, how they presented the product in the display, if we thought that was compelling for us as consumers. And if it wasn't, they asked us why and kind of probed us with questions on how we felt about the store environment that we were in when we did that store walkthrough. So going through that experience and seeing how dedicated Victoria's Secret and Pink are to their consumers and how much they invest in something like a focus group for their company, and obviously like how regularly they do it too, because I think they've had that program going on for at least a few years now. It was very admirable to see a company that dedicates that much to the marketing and also just consumer research and constantly improving their products so that they can best serve the customer that they have. So that was one of my first experiences with Victoria's Secret that I really enjoyed. So from freshman year, it was always a company that I had a lot of interest in. I just finished up an internship through my sophomore year and part of the way through my junior year with a company called Hopkins Printing. They're a commercial printing company out of Columbus, and they are actually a print service for Victoria's Secret. So there's a couple print buyers at Victoria's Secret and Pink that use Hopkins Printing to print a lot of their in-store signage for the company. So that was my second encounter with them. I had met the account manager at Hopkins Printing and a couple of the print buyers that we work very closely with at Victoria's Secret, and seeing that relationship and seeing a different side of the company from someone who's like a vendor for Victoria's Secret was a really awesome experience. In seeing how attentive to detail and the way that they manage their in-store signage and the relationship with their vendors was also something that really piqued my interest in the company, definitely kept me very interested in them to like seek out interview opportunities and just ways to get more involved with the company.
So it sounded like when you met with them or interviewed with them, even met with them at the career fair, it wasn't very cold. You knew about the company on multiple different facets, and I think that was huge in setting you up for success. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think ultimately it was evident that I had a lot of interest in the company going into the interview. So just having that, I guess, air of confidence going into the interview and knowing about the company from different areas. Not that I know everything about the company, but just having the firsthand experience of like just kind of being aware of like some of the stuff the company does behind the scenes is really cool.
Now, how did you get part of that immersion program?
Yeah, so the Fisher College of Business has an industry immersion program, and it's basically a year-long program for a number of different industries. So they offer classes in retail, which is the one that I took. They offer manufacturing, sustainability, consumer packaged goods, nonprofit, and a handful of others. But it's essentially a year-long program where first semester, it's mostly educational. So you do a lot of in-class lectures and visits to companies in the area, or you have speakers come into your class and talk about the industry. And it's a lot of doing a deep dive into the industry and learning a lot about it from the people that are in the industry, and also just like whatever your instructor teaches you that semester.
Okay.
So that was the first semester. Spring semester is essentially like a semester-long capstone project where you have a group of 3 to 4 people and you work on a project with one of the company sponsors for the program. So each industry class has a different set of, I think it's 4 or 5 company sponsors. One of the company company sponsors for my retail class was a company called Group Dynamite. They're a retailer based out of Montreal, Canada. And I did a project on their 14 to 17-year-old female retail brand called Garage.
Okay.
They have, I think, 70-ish stores, if I remember correctly, in the United States. And then I have a handful of stores in Canada. So the purpose of my group's project was to analyze what they're currently doing as a business and where they're at in the US market and give them recommendations on how they can further grow their sales and their presence in the US market, especially on the side of brand awareness, being a Canadian company that's going against a lot of really well-established retailers in the United States. So I did that for an entire semester, and then they were kind enough to fly us out to their corporate office in Montreal where we gave our final presentation. And that experience and working on that project was probably one of my favorite experiences that I've had since coming to Ohio State, because it was just really cool to be able to work with the company directly and get retail experience and have enough research and I guess credibility from being a student at Ohio State that's within their target demographic and is from the United States to go to Canada and give them the US perspective and actually give them valuable insights that they may have not been aware of before.
Yeah, I mean it's huge, especially when you go in the interview aspect. It's not only were you able to rub elbows with other Victoria's Secrets individuals internally within the company, but you're also working firsthand with a company outside a competitor per se, hypothetically speaking, but someone within industry. You have a better understanding of two facets there, and I think that's a critical piece. Really sets you up for success for your interview. I think that's a huge thing. So, how did the Hopkins Printing Initiative come about? So that was a summer internship between your sophomore and junior year, correct? How did that come about? Was that a career fair initiative or what?
Now, so there's a program through Fisher called like a Job Shadow Day program where you can sign up to shadow a company for a day in Columbus. I think it was over spring break. So over spring break of my freshman year, I signed up for that program and got assigned to Hopkins Printing. So I spent a day there with their president of sales and did a series of events that day. I also had a previous connection with the company because a company that I worked on in a mentorship class in high school, they happened to be a customer of Hopkins. So I had previously met someone at Hopkins before, which was also very beneficial when I went there because I had already recognized someone at the company. But I had done that job shadow day, and throughout the day, I just learned that it was a really awesome company and they have a really awesome company culture. And throughout my job shadow experience, the person that I had spent my day with had mentioned that they had an opening for a marketing coordinator position that coming fall. So I had followed up with that and then interviewed and met with him about it and eventually got the position.
So he told you about this verbally. How did you follow up? Did you follow up the next day? Did you follow like 2 weeks down the road?
Yeah, I think I followed up a day or two after I had done the job shadow. I sent him a quick thank you and just reiterated that I was still really interested in the position. I sent him a couple of things that I had done in the past. I think at the time I had done a social media account in high school, so I had sent him the link to a social media page that I had managed in the past. I also sent him some samples of stuff that I had worked on for the student magazine at Fisher. So I sent him a couple samples of my social media experience as well as my graphic design experience just to see if he was interested in it and kind of give him a better idea of what my experience had been with social media and just content creation in general. So I had sent that with the thank you, and I believe he responded and was essentially like, thanks for sending along this info, like reach back out to me at the end of the summer because that's when we'll be looking for a marketing coordinator. So I had reached back out at the end of the summer and then like had scheduled to meet up with him and ended up working there for almost 2 years.
Oh wait, you did it your summer of your freshman year as well?
After freshman year. So I had started at the very beginning of my sophomore year and then worked till now, which is the end of my junior year.
Wow, that's impressive, and that looks fantastic on a resume. I think the key nugget I like here is that we're not waiting to say, hey, we can be managing social media accounts. You're actually actively doing it in high school and in college, and so you were involved in an org on campus your freshman year. What was it?
Yeah, so I was involved in Fisher Inc. It's the undergrad student magazine for the Fisher College of Business. So we're a triannual magazine. We put out an issue fall, winter, and spring. So I started with that my fall semester of freshman year and started just as one of the designers on the design team. I was a part of a magazine in high school, so that was kind of something that I was looking to get involved in on campus. And I had happened to see that they had one in Fisher, which was very lucky considering that I'm also a business major. So it was kind of the best of both worlds that I got to be part of a business magazine too.
So wait, you're a marketing major, but then you're doing design. Why?
So I was a part of my high school magazine for 3 years, and I had learned InDesign and a little bit of Illustrator in high school just from doing that and kind of learning it on my own.
Hmm.
And that's always been something that I've just thought was really cool and really fun and was something that I still wanted to be involved with in college. And I think for me, like when I think of marketing, obviously there's the more like data driven analytical side, but I've definitely always been very drawn to the more creative side that's very focused on like communications. Branding is probably my favorite part of marketing because it's so visually driven and so like communication consistently driven. Like that's kind of like the identity of the company. And I think crafting like the identity of the company and managing that is the most interesting part of marketing to me. And when you're in that space, you work with a lot of people that are graphic designers and have all those skills. So being able to see from that perspective and learning more of the design side and how kind of it can relate to marketing was something that definitely has always piqued my interest since high school. It's something that I've always been trying to be involved with.
Well, it's worked out well because now, I mean, this past year you were managing design team, so now carry managerial skills. But then on top of that, you're now the president of the student org. Congratulations to you on
Yeah.
this upcoming year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then you'll be learning the managerial skills above and beyond that of each team member in order to create the actual magazine, which really sets you up for success in this specific realm of marketing, or whether it be the creative agency or whether it be in the retail form, because it's the communication is still the process is still the same regardless, and you're smarter, especially after this internship. You'll be smarter and you'll have a better understanding of how things are done faster, and what expectations will look like, if that makes sense. So no, really cool. So you did a phone conversation with Victoria's Secret your sophomore year. It was over the phone. Nothing proceeded after that, but junior year rolled around. It was during the spring career fair. You saw Victoria's Secret. They had a short line, and you went up to them. What did you say, or do you remember what you said when you reached out? Or
Yeah, so I remember, I think it was towards the end of when I had gone to the spring career fair this past year. I saw that the L Brands table didn't have a super long line. So I was like, oh, okay, like I guess I'll go wait in that line because it's long. And I think I had a class to go to afterwards. So I was like, I think it was probably my last stop at the career fair was at the L Brands table, and I was looking for somewhere that I could go to quickly to get to class. So I waited in that line and I talked to one of their university relations people. I remember, I'm trying to think, I said when I went up. I think it was something along the lines of I had looked at their digital marketing positions online. I had sent an application for that position before I had gone to the career fair. So when I went up, I said like, hi, I noticed like online that you have open digital marketing positions and you're looking for interns this semester. Like I would love to hear more about it and / more about the internship program that you have. Because with L Brands, they have a pretty solid network of interns every year, like across all of the L Brands offices. And I knew that going into it. So I asked her about that. And off the bat, I feel like we had a really good conversation. I had talked to her a little bit about marketing. I asked her about her background as a recruiter, because something I have thought of eventually is if I get bored with marketing or decide to do something else, I thought it'd be really cool to be a university recruiter. So I asked her a little bit about that because that's something that I think is really cool too.
oh, you went real personal. That's interesting. So she had to talk about herself.
Yeah. I didn't intend it to be that way, but I think that's probably why it ended up being a decent conversation. Is I had asked her about like what her experience is as a recruiter, because I have done a little bit of recruitment for my business fraternity on campus. But I had mentioned that recruitment was something that I like never thought I would be interested in, but in a way it's kind of like marketing for a company. So I thought it was really cool that she was a recruiter. So I had asked her a little bit about that too.
That's a good one. I never thought of that or ever asking that question. But the other key insight here, I think, is as you mentioned, you applied beforehand. And I think that really separates individuals. You kind of took that step further. So what resulted from that conversation? You mentioned she gave you her contact number.
Yeah, so after that conversation, I had told her I'd already applied for the position and I had given her my resume. She gave me her email and told me to email her my resume after the conference, I think so that she could just like have more than one copy. And she said she would forward it on to the Victoria's Secret team. So after the career fair, a day or two later, I sent a quick email saying like, hi, thank you. Like I really enjoyed talking to you at the career fair, and just kind of reiterated that I was really interested in marketing and was really looking to go into the retail industry long term, like post graduation. I was just really interested in the retail industry and I really love Victoria's Secret, and kind of just reiterated that I was really interested in the position. And I ended the email with, here's a copy of my resume again. Let me know if you need anything else. Like I look forward to hearing from you, etc. So I kept it pretty short, but essentially just reiterating my interest in what we had talked about and that I wanted to know more about the position that I was applying for.
No, no, fantastic. And then that led to an in-person interview, correct?
Yeah, so she had responded and said she had passed along my info. And then I believe a couple weeks later, I got another email saying that the Victoria's Secret team would like to schedule an interview. And then a couple emails later, I had gotten a confirmation of like all my interview details.
Now, how did you prepare for this interview?
So first thing I did, because I had had a little bit of a connection with Victoria's Secret at Hopkins Printing, I went to our account manager that works with Victoria's Secret and Pink and told her that I had an interview coming up with the company and that I was a little bit nervous about it. So I basically asked her if she had any advice or tips for me or her experience with the company too. And she was kind enough to go email the person that she talks to at Victoria's Secret, one of the print buyers there. And she had talked to him and he had offered if I wanted to jump on a quick call with him later that week, and so that he could give me a little bit of advice going into the interview. That was probably helped me the most in terms of preparation for the interview, because when I talked to him, I think I probably talked to him for maybe 30, 45 minutes, and he just kind of gave me advice and essentially calmed me down before I went into the interview, because a lot of advice was on the lines of just be yourself, be really enthusiastic when you go into it, make sure you ask good questions. It's okay if you don't know everything about marketing or about the company or about retail. As long as you are very genuine and very enthusiastic in the interview, like you'll do fine. So that was definitely super helpful going into the interview, because I think a lot of anxiety that I have around interviewing, and probably what a lot of people have around interviewing, is like, what is the right way to do an interview? And there's really no right way, and you kind of just have to calm yourself down before you go into it and just make sure you're putting your best foot forward and just being very genuine and enthusiastic and authentic as possible in the interview.
Yeah, I like you mentioned before, one of his statements was to like read the room and be confident. I think that's a critical piece. Another way to look at it too is kind of like reverse psychology. Like when they contact you and you have an interview with them, really they're offering you their job. It's for you to kind of take it and you to be yourself and you to kind of geek out.
Right.
Because if you're a perfect fit, you're a perfect fit. It's as simple as that. There's no reason to kind of fake it, because that's going to be who you are, and then that's how everyone else is at the company as well. And you'll understand that this summer once you get there. I mean, they're just like you, and it's wild.
Yeah.
It's so much fun that way. What do you think was one of the hardest questions that they actually asked during the interview process?
Probably the hardest one, and it's like a relatively common one. I don't exactly remember how they phrased it, but one of my last interviews, the guy had asked me, what do you want to do after you graduate, slash like, where do you see yourself in a few years, like after you graduate? And that's always been one that's hard for me, just because my mindset, I'm very in the present, and I kind of have a tough time looking into the future and kind of picturing where I see myself in the future, because I think that's just not really how my brain's wired. And also, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do after college. Like, I don't have a set plan set out. So answering that question and answering it well, even though you don't know what you want to do, has always been a struggle for me. I think I said something along the lines of, I preface that I don't really know, but I see that I really like retail right now and I really like marketing. And then I know that branding is something that I find really exciting in marketing and is the biggest part of marketing that I find interesting. So something in that realm, whether that's like a brand management position or working with a really strong brand, that's where I see myself at the moment. And that's kind of the direction I'm going to.
No, really cool. On campus, who do you think, if someone was really interested in the retail industry or specifically within this digital marketing space, someone that was really well connected, who do you think that would be on campus that someone should really be reaching out to, or at least rubbing elbows with and helping campus?
Yeah, I think for retail, definitely the instructor for the retail industry immersion program, Doug Farron, he's a good resource. He had actually worked at L Brand several years ago before he came to the university. He works for the National Center for the Middle Market now on campus, so he does a lot of research in the middle market. He's the director of that organization. So he has a lot of experience with retail and he has a lot of personal connections that he's brought to the industry immersion program, both on like the retail side and the middle market side. So for those industries, he's definitely a really good resource. He has a lot of good connections. I also have talked a lot with the director of the Undergraduate Leadership and Engagement Office in Fisher, or ULEO for short. Her name's Lorraine Pennyman. She's really awesome. I actually had the opportunity to go on a study abroad trip with her my sophomore year, so I got to know her really well through that trip. And then throughout my junior year, I've just kind of gone back in to say hello and see how she's doing and see what she's up to. And a couple of times when I went back, especially when I was looking for internships for the summer, she had name dropped a couple people and said some of the connections that she's had and said that I was definitely feel free to reach out to them. So she's an awesome resource. She's a very intelligent woman. She has a lot of really good connections in Columbus, and she's definitely someone that's willing to help a lot of students. I've talked to a lot of students that are involved in different Fisher student organizations, and pretty much everyone knows her. If you're like a president of a Fisher student organization, or if you're just really involved in Fisher, a lot of people know her because she's such a great resource and she's very willing to help students, and she has a lot of really good relationships in terms of being like a really good mentor to a lot of kids in Fisher.
No, that's fantastic. I think that just wraps everything about up. Thank you so much for your help. This has been huge. And Lily, I wish you all the best this summer.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was fun.
Thank you.